What if an ordinary morning could become one of the most important moments in human history? What if an entire city changed forever in less time than it takes to blink? It sounds impossible. Yet on August 6th, 1945, that is exactly what happened. The city was Hiroshima, a place filled with families, workers, students, and everyday routines. People woke up expecting a normal day. None of them knew history was approaching from the sky. Breakfasts were being prepared. Children were getting ready for school. Office workers were beginning their morning schedules. Life moved forward with familiar rhythm. The streets were alive with ordinary activity. Conversations echoed through neighborhoods. Bicycles rolled along roads. The city felt calm. Like millions of people throughout history, the residents of Hiroshima had plans for the future, appointments to keep, dreams to pursue. Nobody wakes up expecting their city to become a symbol remembered around the world. Nobody expects to become part of history. History usually arrives without warning, and it was only minutes away. The year was 1945. World War II was entering its final stage. Years of fighting had exhausted nations. The conflict had already reshaped the world. Across Europe, major battles had ended. But in the Pacific, the war continued. Military leaders searched for ways to bring the conflict to a close. The pressure was immense. Governments faced difficult decisions. Every option carried risks. Every strategy carried consequences. The stakes could not have been higher. Meanwhile, a secret project had changed the course of science. For years, researchers worked on an unprecedented weapon, a weapon unlike anything seen before. Its existence remained hidden from most of the world. The project involved brilliant scientists, enormous resources, and extraordinary urgency. Its goal was simple to describe. Yet its implications were enormous. Unlock the power of the atom. The result was the atomic bomb, a weapon representing a new level of destructive capability, a weapon that would introduce humanity to the nuclear age, a weapon that would soon be tested in war. As dawn broke over Hiroshima, few residents could imagine such technology existed. Fewer still could imagine it would soon affect their lives. The future remained invisible. High above the Pacific, an American bomber moved toward its target. The aircraft carried a mission unlike any before it. Its crew had trained extensively. History was riding with them. The aircraft was called the Enola Gay. Inside was a single bomb. Yet that single bomb carried consequences far beyond its size. Consequences that would echo for generations. The crew followed their orders. The mission continued. Weather conditions were evaluated. The target remained unchanged. Below, life in Hiroshima continued normally. People walked to work. Students gathered for classes. The city remained unaware. This contrast feels haunting in hindsight. A normal morning below. A historic mission above. Two realities moving toward the same moment. Minute by minute, the distance closed. The aircraft approached. The city carried on. Neither path could now be reversed. The tension existed only because we know what happened next. The people below did not. For them, it was simply another morning. Perhaps that is what makes the story so powerful. History often focuses on leaders and weapons. But history is ultimately experienced by ordinary people. People with families, people with hopes. That truth matters here. Because the story of Hiroshima is not merely about technology or warfare. It is also about human lives. Lives caught in a world-changing event. The aircraft reached its destination. Preparations were completed. The mission entered its final stage. The decisive moment approached. At 8:15 in the morning, everything was about to change. Not gradually, not over hours, but in a single instant. At exactly 8:15 a.m., the bomb was released. For a brief moment, it fell silently through the air. Most people below had no idea it existed. The city continued its ordinary routine. Seconds passed. The bomb descended toward its target. No alarms echoed across the city. No warning could explain what was coming. Then everything changed. A blinding flash illuminated the sky, brighter than anything most witnesses had ever seen. A light so intense it seemed unreal. In an instant, the ordinary morning vanished. The familiar city disappeared beneath overwhelming force. The event unfolded faster than human comprehension. The world had entered a new era. The explosion released extraordinary energy. The effects spread rapidly across the city. Buildings suffered immense damage. Entire neighborhoods were transformed. People who had been working, studying, or walking moments earlier found themselves caught in an event unlike any before it. Confusion spread immediately. Understanding lagged far behind reality. For survivors, the first challenge was simply making sense of what had happened. The scale felt unimaginable. The experience felt impossible to describe. Nothing in memory offered comparison. Across Hiroshima, familiar landmarks disappeared. Streets became difficult to recognize. Entire sections of the city changed dramatically. The landscape itself seemed altered. The shock extended beyond physical destruction. People struggled to understand the source of the catastrophe. Many had never heard of an atomic bomb. The concept was entirely unfamiliar. Questions emerged everywhere. What happened? What caused this? Could another attack follow? Information was scarce. Communication systems suffered disruption. Rumors spread rapidly. Reliable answers remained difficult to find. For many survivors, uncertainty became as frightening as the event itself. The future felt unclear. The present felt overwhelming. The past suddenly seemed distant. Meanwhile, observers elsewhere struggled to comprehend the reports. News arriving from Hiroshima sounded extraordinary. The scale of destruction appeared unprecedented. Many people could scarcely believe it. Military leaders analyzed incoming information. Scientists examined the consequences. Governments sought details. The world watched with growing attention. The bombing represented something fundamentally new. Weapons had caused immense destruction before, but this event introduced a different scale of power, a scale that would change global thinking. The atomic age had begun. Humanity now possessed technology capable of unprecedented destruction. The implications extended far beyond a single city. They extended to the future itself. Yet amid these global implications, the experience remained deeply personal for those on the ground. Families searched for loved ones. Communities searched for answers. Many survivors later remembered small details. A conversation, a routine task, a moment from earlier that morning. Those memories became precious. They represented the final moments before everything changed. The last connection to an ordinary world. A world that suddenly felt very far away. History often records dates and statistics. But human beings remember experiences, voices, faces, relationships. That is why Hiroshima continues to resonate, not only because of its historical significance, but because it reminds us that major events are lived by individuals, one person at a time. The city had become a symbol, yet it was still a place filled with real lives, real hopes, real stories. And as the scale of the disaster became clearer, another realization emerged. The consequences of this moment would not end that day. They would continue for years. Because Hiroshima was no longer just a city affected by war. It had become the first city in history transformed by atomic warfare, a distinction that would forever shape how the world remembered it. As the immediate shock began to fade, confusion took its place. Survivors looked around and struggled to recognize their surroundings. Familiar streets seemed unfamiliar. The city they knew had changed in moments. People moved through damaged neighborhoods searching for loved ones. Parents searched for children. Children searched for parents. Friends searched for friends. Everywhere, questions filled the air. Who survived? Where were their families? What had happened to the city? Many had no answers. The scale of the destruction made communication difficult. Information traveled slowly. Uncertainty seemed endless. For countless people, time felt different that day. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. The normal rhythm of life had vanished. The emotional impact spread rapidly. Fear mixed with confusion. Hope mixed with grief. Every survivor carried a different story. Some searched tirelessly for missing relatives. Others tried helping neighbors. Many focused on simple survival. Every decision felt urgent. In times of catastrophe, ordinary actions become extraordinary. Sharing water, offering assistance, providing comfort during uncertainty. Even amid devastation, acts of compassion appeared. People helped strangers. Communities supported one another. Humanity persisted despite the tragedy. Across the city, survivors tried to understand the cause of the attack. Most had never encountered anything similar. The destruction seemed beyond explanation. The reality felt overwhelming. Meanwhile, news of Hiroshima spread internationally. Governments received reports. Military leaders analyzed information. Scientists examined the implications. The world gradually realized that something unprecedented had occurred. This was not merely another wartime event. It represented a turning point, a moment unlike any before it. The atomic bomb introduced a new dimension to warfare. The relationship between science and conflict had changed dramatically. Technology had reached a new threshold. The consequences were profound. Around the world, reactions varied. Some focused on military outcomes. Others focused on humanitarian concerns. Debates began almost immediately. Questions emerged that historians still discuss today. Could events have unfolded differently? Were alternative options available? How should this moment be understood? These questions remain complex. They involve military strategy, political decisions, and historical context. Simple answers rarely capture the full picture. The debate continues. Yet, regardless of perspective, one reality remains clear. The bombing affected real people, real families, real communities. The human dimension cannot be separated from the historical one. Statistics describe scale, but stories reveal experience, and experience is what people remember. Many survivors would later share their memories, not only to describe what happened, but to preserve lessons for future generations, to ensure the event would not be forgotten. Their testimonies became invaluable. They transformed abstract history into personal history. They gave names and faces to a global event. They made the story human. As years passed, Hiroshima became more than a place. It became a symbol recognized around the world, a symbol of loss, a symbol of reflection. The city's name entered international discussions about war and peace, about technology and responsibility, about power and consequences. Its significance continued to grow. What happened in Hiroshima affected more than one nation. It influenced global politics, military planning, scientific discussions. And as the world tried to understand this new reality, a deeper question emerged. Humanity had unlocked extraordinary power, but was humanity prepared for the responsibility that came with it? As the world absorbed the news from Hiroshima, leaders everywhere understood that history had changed. A new chapter had begun, and nobody knew exactly where it would lead. The atomic bomb was not simply a stronger weapon. It represented an entirely new category of power. The scale of its impact forced governments to rethink the future of warfare. Military planners studied the event closely. Scientists analyzed the results. Politicians debated the implications. The world entered unfamiliar territory. For many people, the reaction was complicated. There was amazement at the scientific achievement. But there was also fear, a deep fear of what might come next. Humanity had unlocked the energy hidden within the atom. The accomplishment was extraordinary, yet its first major use in war raised difficult moral questions. Questions that still echo today. Should such weapons ever be used? Can immense power be controlled responsibly? What limits should exist? No single answer satisfied everyone. Different nations viewed the event differently. Different generations interpreted it differently. The debate became part of history itself. Yet one fact remained impossible to ignore. The world now knew what atomic weapons could do. That knowledge could never be erased. The future had changed permanently. Soon, other countries began pursuing nuclear technology. Competition increased. Scientific research accelerated. The nuclear age expanded. The balance of power shifted. Governments worried about security. Military doctrines evolved. International relations became more complicated. A new kind of fear emerged. Not fear of a single battle, not fear of one nation alone, but fear of global catastrophe. The possibility of nuclear conflict became part of political thinking. Leaders recognized that future wars could carry unprecedented consequences. For ordinary citizens, this created uncertainty. People followed news about nuclear developments. They watched international tensions carefully. The future felt unpredictable. The irony was striking. Scientific progress had achieved something remarkable. Yet, that achievement introduced new risks to human civilization. This contradiction sits at the center of Hiroshima's legacy. Knowledge can improve lives. Knowledge can solve problems. But knowledge can also create dangers. The same intelligence that develops medicine can develop weapons. The same creativity that builds cities can also destroy them. Hiroshima forced humanity to confront this reality. Technology alone is not enough. Power alone is not enough. Wisdom matters too. Many survivors dedicated their lives to sharing that lesson. They wanted future generations to remember the human consequences of conflict. Their voices carried unusual authority. They had witnessed history firsthand. They understood the event not as theory, but as lived experience. Those stories traveled around the world. Students learned them. Researchers studied them. Communities reflected on them. Over time, Hiroshima became a place of remembrance. Visitors came from many nations. Some sought understanding. Others sought perspective. The city itself transformed. Reconstruction demonstrated resilience. Recovery demonstrated determination. Life continued. This became another important part of the story. Not only destruction, not only tragedy, but also recovery and endurance. And perhaps that is what makes Hiroshima unique. It is a story about what happened in a single instant, but it is also a story about everything that happened afterward. At first, Hiroshima seems like a story about a weapon, a story about science, war, and destruction. But the deeper you look, the more complicated the story becomes. Because weapons do not make decisions. Technology does not choose targets. Machines do not carry responsibility. People do. That realization changes everything. The story is not only about what was created, it is also about how power is used and why choices matter. History often celebrates innovation. New discoveries push civilization forward. They expand knowledge. They transform possibilities. Yet Hiroshima reminds us of another truth. Every breakthrough carries responsibility. The greater the power, the greater the consequences. That is the first twist hidden inside this story. The atomic bomb was not merely a military event. It became a test of humanity itself, a test that continues today. Most people think Hiroshima changed because of one explosion, but the deeper change occurred afterward. The world began asking new questions, questions that had never existed before. How should nuclear weapons be controlled? Can nations prevent future catastrophe? Can diplomacy succeed where conflict fails? Can humanity learn from experience? Those questions remain relevant decades later. They influence international agreements, political negotiations, and discussions about global security. In that sense, Hiroshima never truly became history. Its lessons continue influencing the present. Its legacy continues shaping decisions. Its warnings continue echoing. And now comes the deeper twist. Many people think the most important moment was the explosion itself. But perhaps the most important moment came afterward. The moment humanity understood what had happened. Because once the world understood, it could never return to ignorance. The knowledge existed. The reality existed. Humanity crossed a threshold on that day, a line separating two eras, the world before nuclear weapons and the world after them. That line still shapes modern history. Governments continue considering its implications. Scientists continue discussing its significance. Citizens continue debating its lessons. Yet beneath these global conversations, the human dimension remains essential. History is not only about nations, it is also about individuals. Every major event affects real lives, families, communities, future generations. That is why memory matters. Not to remain trapped in the past, but to understand it, to learn from it. The survivors who shared their experiences offered more than historical testimony. They offered perspective, a reminder of what is at stake. Their stories transform statistics into human experiences. Numbers can describe scale, but stories reveal meaning. Stories create understanding, and understanding may be the most valuable lesson of all. Without understanding, history becomes distant. With understanding, history becomes relevant. It becomes personal. Perhaps that is why Hiroshima continues to resonate, not because it belongs to one nation alone, but because its questions belong to everyone. Its lessons belong to humanity. Can power be matched by wisdom? Can progress be matched by responsibility? Can humanity avoid repeating its worst mistakes? These questions remain open, and that leads to the final irony. One of the most destructive moments in history became one of the strongest arguments for reflection, restraint, and peace. So Hiroshima is not remembered only because of what happened in a single instant. It is remembered because of what that instant revealed. The immense power humanity possesses, and the immense responsibility that comes with it. A lesson that still echoes across the world today.